So I keep walking and I get past the house. Something started roaring up in the tree. And this roar was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. After I get down to the bottom, I'm walking along and I hear something to my left. I hear like a something to my left. So I know this thing is tracking me now. It's kind of hard to grasp what this creature is or what's tracking me. So I get back to my house, throw about 15 shells into my .22 rifle, and I tell myself, this isn't going to do anything. I just put it down. I said, this is nothing.
Welcome back to the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me as always my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
What's going on with you? Have you been getting excited about getting out and doing any investigating soon as the weather warms up?
Yeah, man, I'm ready for spring.
Yeah, me too.
Bring it on.
Me too.
Ready.
Tonight's guest, Glenn, is coming on, and Glenn had several different Bigfoot encounters, experiences in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's right, Pennsylvania. We've had a few from there.
Yeah, he's part of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot research group that we talked to.
Yep.
Mary and...
Yep, nice people.
It'll be cool to bring Glenn on and see what he's got to say.
Absolutely.
All right. Ready?
Let's get him.
Glenn, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Nice to meet you, Brian, Todd. Hey, I'm part of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. I'm kind of the Northeast Regional Chapter lead. I also have Lackawanna County as my personal lead that I started or have. So you can contact me through there or Luzerne County, any one of those. I can read them off later. But
cool. You had some things going on, you said, in Arizona, is that right? And some Pennsylvania stuff, right?
Yeah, some serious things in Pennsylvania. We got bluff rushed by one. 4 of us did, but I can get into that a little bit later. That's a pretty heavy story and experience that we had. Mm-hmm. Let me go into one of my ones in Arizona, if you don't mind. Or
yeah, go ahead. Just
go ahead.
Take it from the start and tell us everything.
Cool. I was taking a friend of mine's girlfriend. We were walking home from a birthday party that time in Arizona, and this is around 2:00 in the morning. So I'm walking her home down a kind of desolated roads and get past this one area, said goodnight to her, coming back down that same road. These dogs on the left-hand side, the last house on the left, that they started raising hell. And these dogs that kind of came right to the fence and almost attacked us before. So I remembered the dogs. So I started crossing the road. So I'm crossing the road and there's no traffic. So I get about halfway across the road and halfway past the house, and the dogs just go silent. Just nothing. And you can't hear any noise in the woods, nothing. So I keep walking, and I get past the house, and something started roaring up in the tree. And this roar was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. The reverberation was just going right through my body. And this thing was probably 35, 40 feet up in a tree and about 45, 50 feet back into the woods to my left. And I'm walking on this road and I can feel this power of this powerful roar going right through my body. And I have to go down this big slope, about a 50-foot incline down this hill. And after I get down to the bottom, I'm walking along and I hear something to my left. I hear like something to my left. So I know this thing is tracking me now. And I said, I'm not going to run. I don't want to run because if you run, you pray. I don't want to do that. Something told me don't run. So I'm walking along through that. I'm on the road, but there's a barbed wire fence on both sides. And then there's a little field on my left, houses on a few cabins on my right, summer cabins at the time. And I keep walking, get up to the top of the hill, and I hear something to my right. And it's tracking in front of me, like 30 or 40 yards, 50 yards in front of me, and then forwarding 50, 60, 50, 60. It just stays with me, keeps moving when I move to try and stay hidden, but I can hear it. And I get up to the highway where I have to turn, and it's a desolated highway, two lane. And I turn and I can hear it behind this Blue Ridge Drive-In that's up there. And then I hear it behind the post office. but I can't see it between, even though there's a light between it, but I can hear it on the gravel between it, behind it. I can hear the sound of this thing moving. And I'm just like freaking out. I'm like, 15 years old, so it's kind of hard to grasp what this creature is or what's tracking me. So I get back to my house. Was a barn my dad built behind the restaurant. He made a third of it. We made it into an apartment. So in the apartment, that's where I was. I throw about 15 shells into my 22 rifle, and I tell myself, this isn't going to do anything. I just put it down. I said, this is nothing. And I don't want to wake up my dad at 3 a.m. with any kind of, story or not. I didn't want to do that at 3 a.m. So I just said, no. Do I call the game warden, the Forest Service? I didn't know what to do at 15. I'm just like freaking out. I don't know what this creature is. I didn't really think about Bigfoot. I kind of remember something a few years before that about like the $6 Million Man or episode or something like that. But there was nothing in my mind about it, moving there. I lived in Colorado. I lived in California, different areas. But so the next morning, I didn't get any sleep, pretty much. I don't remember any sleeping at all. I go right back out there the next morning. And I go out to that hill, I go up it, I go over to those trees. I walk straight out to where I heard the vocals. And I walk out and I see this tree. It's probably as big around as a big tire, SUV tire. And on the bottom of the tire, on the bottom of the tree is a push mark. All the pine needles are pushed away about 6 or 7 inches wide and about 5 or 6 inches deep, halfway around this huge pine tree. And it's not like dug where a dog would have done it. It's like smooth, like it was just brushed all away around the bottom of this base of this tree. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of interesting. There's definitely something was there. And I look and there's like this tree that was been pushed down, and it kind of looked like 2 marks above, where I would be, and it was like kind of separated, like maybe a thumb kind of mark on the 2 thumbs, where it would like maybe rock and push this tree over. Just impression I was getting. So I decided to go down through the woods, down into the field where it paralleled me. So I get down there and I see this big mound of grass in front of me. It's about 25 feet long and about 8 or 10 feet wide. And I see a footprint. It's the right foot of this creature. And it's probably about 15 and a half inches long. And it's sunk about 7 or 8 inches into this grass. That the grass was about 1.5 feet deep. Okay, that the farmer just been dumping there or whatever, just left. So it's sunk in, and you can see the shape of the right toes, the right shape of the foot, everything. And I think that's what I heard, because about 8 or 10 feet past that were both feet sunk in. So I think what it did, it sunk in and then landed on both feet. And that's where there was 2 impressions, a left and a right. And you can see the shape of the toe. Even though it was in a grass, you could see it. And then it must have just stepped right out of it. But that's what I heard moving to my left through that field pretty quickly, probably. So I look in that field, and there's a couple trees up toward the corner of that field on that side of the road. Even though I heard it on the other side, I wanted to check out this side of the road, right? And I see it, and I'm getting closer, and I'm looking, and this pine tree is beautiful, about 60, 70 feet up. And next to it is this other tree, and I'm looking at it, well, wait a minute. It's bent, like it goes up about 7 or 8 feet, and it bends about 90 degrees, and then bends again, and then bends over the other direction, and then bends up again. And it does this 2 or 3, 4 times going up the tree. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And they're both pine trees. And this is, blowing my mind. Okay, never seen a pine tree ever do this. I've seen some like Indian markers and some other, different regions, but this was like decades would have taken. So I look, and there's sap being dug out of the top of this tree, and it's dripping out, and there's like this claw mark up there. So I'm 15 years old, so I jump up there, and I climb up there. And guys, I'm on the last branch that'll support my weight, and I'm only like 110 pounds at that time when I'm 15, And I can't reach. I'm like at least 3.5 feet away from where it was digging. So whatever was standing there digging that sap was standing on the branch that I was standing on and digging that sap and using it for whatever, eating it, using it for a hair salve. That I don't know what they do for it. But it was just interesting. So I started talking to different people about Bigfoot, and well, because I kind of figured out it had to have been a Bigfoot because nothing else could reach that way, the size of the foot. I'm not, didn't take me too long after that morning to figure that out. So I talked to some of my friends, and they told me different stories about Grandma Penrod and different other things going on up, on the mountain there, and some Indians saying that they were tracking him down the mountain like 50 yards, 100 yards to their left, keeping pace going down the mountain with their horses, just no problem, and just going right through the woods. Not even a concern to them, really. They were just kind of like, just tracking them, following them down, But so I started listening a little more to different things and going out more in my, those areas. The next one was actually down that same little dirt road where those two trees were, where the farmer's field ended. There's a little dirt road. There was like 5 or 6 houses on the right-hand side. I was visiting my friend Johnny and his wife at the last house on the right, and visiting them for a couple hours, whatever. I can't remember if I had lunch or whatever, but I said, I'm going to go out into the woods or toward the lake. And their dog Wolfie happened to be walking with me as I left. She was about 15 feet in front of me. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden I hear that same roar in front of us, about a quarter mile in front of us. Maybe less, maybe 1/8 of a mile, but you can't tell because it's so loud. And just, even at that distance, you can hear the girth of this voice. And the dog just stops in her track and turns and looks back at me with this look on her face. And I just took off running toward it as fast as I could. And at 15, I learned how to kind of push off of rocks by the Indians and how to run faster any way you can. And I'm looking side to side up in the trees, running as fast as I can. And I get through to the clearing of the trees where they end, and the lake's about 50 yards in front of us, in front of me. I don't remember what the dog was at that point. And I'm out of breath, and I can see, the shore, but I said, I'm going to go at an angle to my right to the shore and walk along the shore to see if I see anything, because I didn't know. I keep looking in the woods, and I know I heard this creature. I know it's there, So I'm walking along, and I'm getting closer, and I see something sticking out of the ground, and it's sticking up about 16 inches above the shore. And I'm getting closer and closer, and it's about 6 or 8 inches wide, or 6 or 7 inches wide. And I'm like, what is that? And it's curling over toward the shore, and it's mud that was stepped into by the creature, the front half of its foot, into the mud, sunk down about 8 inches deep, and pushed all this mud above the ground. And it was about that wide, and it was about 1 inch thick, just straight up, and then curling back toward the shore was the mud. It was in midair. It was very thick mud. So it had to have weighed an immense amount of weight. And I got all the way over to it. I'm looking in, and it's the right foot, just the front half of this creature's foot. And the water just kind of starting to seep into it or up from it, And it's beautiful. This is perfect human type toes. And you can see that it's not the whole print, because this foot was like huge. It was like 7 inches wide, and then the toes, and it was just like half of it. And it was flat, and pushed all that mud up from the bottom of its foot with all that weight, made it nice and flat going up. And it was good, 16 inches up and then curling toward the shore. So another 3 or 4 inches curl. That's a lot of weight pushing mud down.
Did you happen to get a picture of that?
No, no. The strangest thing is when that happened. I looked and I got this calm, knowing feeling, and I just kind of just like yes, and I turned and I walked out. I didn't bring somebody back out there to see it. It was just this knowing, calm feeling I got. Like they accepted me, I accepted them. I'm not going to bring somebody out. That was.
You said this is in Arizona?
Yes.
What part of Arizona?
Up in the White Mountains. It's actually in Lakeside, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at a map. I mean, I've never been to Arizona, and I don't know. People have never been to Arizona. They think it's just all desert.
Yeah.
There's
Actually,
quite a bit of forest out there.
Yeah. We're Pine Top Lakeside in that area. It's the largest stand of virgin pine trees in the world. They had forest fires about 7 or 8 years ago or more, and didn't even touch their forest comparison. It's just immense amount of forest. But creatures are very smart and know how to hide, and they're
gotta be. Are there in the mountains out there? There's got to be caves and stuff too, right? I'm sure.
Yes. Well, I can tell you my next story quickly. Here, same area.
Go ahead. Yep.
I was in that same area with Peggy, that same girl. Actually, we were going through the woods hiking, and I said, "I'm going to go on the other side of the creek." Because I'd never been on the other side of the creek. And she said, you're going to go looking for Bigfoot, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And she goes, you got to be careful. I mean, and I said, well, why? And she goes, Glenn, I'm going to tell you a couple things, before you go over there, or, when you go, so when she came home, this is like a few years before that, when she was like 12 or 11 or 12, her parents came home in their station wagon, and they came around the corner and pulled toward their driveway, and pulling down, they saw a creature, Bigfoot, leaning on their carport with its arm like level on their carport. It's, like elbow height to their carport. And most carports are 7 or 8 feet tall minimum, That's just, especially out there with lifted trucks and, up in the mountains of Arizona. That's, they're pretty high. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And she goes, Ben, that's not it. That's not it. She said her and a couple of her friends were walking through this marsh area that's over there. And it's kind of between this natural spring that feeds this lake. And it's on the other side of that road. But it's between there and the sewer plant or sewer, area. And somewhere between there, they were hiking or walking through this area, and they found a horse with its head ripped off. Not cut off, ripped off. Like the immense power that it would take. Anybody that knows anything about a horse is a pretty big, powerful animal.
Yeah, it's a pretty stout animal.
Yeah. And so I'm like, wow, okay, I'll be careful. I'm in a good state of mind. I think it'll be fine. So I said goodbye. She had to get back home. So I go looking down the creek to find a place to cross. And I see this little levee. It's about maybe a little more than a foot and a half, maybe. And it's a little rock levee that goes across, and it's about 20 feet across, real deep on the right side. And the water coming in from the left is, pretty shallow coming through, not that deep. So I cross over and I will hike up, or actually downstream toward the lake. And I get maybe 100 yards, 110, 120 yards. And I see this barbed wire fence that has fresh breaks on one of the sticks, about 30 feet up or 20 feet up. I'm like, okay, whoa. And I know that that's a sign of some quick, something came through there soon, So I headed over there and I look, and there's this big clump of blonde hair, and it's bigger around than my finger, and it's about 2 inches longer than my finger. And I'm about, 4 foot away, 3 foot away, kind of just looking at this hair, just kind of, and all of a sudden every hair on my body just stood on the end, my neck, just this imminent death. Something was, right there, and I just spun around, did a whole 360 and dropped to my fingertips like Spider-Man with my feet behind, that's what I did. And I just like looked, and I'm looking side to side, I'm looking up, and I just kind of just start crawling backwards slowly, 5-6 inches at a time. And then I raise up and I turn and I walk out slowly. And I walk out, I get back over to there, and that's all I did right then. Because it's already starting to get dusk, and I go over to that water levee and I walk across that. I'm like, if it's down there, something could just grab me, I'd be gone. Never see me again, because it's that dark and deep. And I'm like, okay, shake it out. I keep going. I get back home. I call a buddy of mine. I said, you got to come out and meet me out here. I didn't tell him why or anything. I said, you got to come out here in the morning. So he met me out there like 7 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning. We go hike back over there, find the same spot, cross over the water levee thing, walk up to the fence line, walk over to where the hair's not there. It's gone. It's gone. Every strand of it gone. And I'm walking over and I'm looking. I'm about the same distance away, 4 foot, 3 foot. I'm like standing. I said, don't walk near it. I want to see if anything dropped. I want to, check this, and I'm looking around for this hair, right? And my friend goes over to this rock that's about 20 feet away. And this rock is a pretty good sized rock. And it's like a pyramid kind of width in the middle. So it's pretty heavy, all right? It's probably 35, 40 pounds. And he tips it up on its end. I have no idea why he did it, what gave him the notion to do it. But there's barbed wire underneath that rock. Tangled up barbed wire. Okay? Now, I don't know any kind of animal or human would do that. Lift a big rock and put barbed wire underneath it. That creek is deep right there. And it's like 20 feet away. A human would just throw it into the creek, probably. They wouldn't care, or they'd leave it on the ground. It's humans are lazy. They wouldn't, and bear can't lift a rock, or, was it going to drag a piece of barbed wire with it with his mouth and then hide it under a rock? No. But a Bigfoot that was trained how to do that, if you get tangled up in barbed wire, you get your hair, ripped out or something, make sure you get all the strands, don't leave the evidence or their footprints. I found out later that a lot of times they'll drag a branch behind them or a couple of branches behind them to cover their tracks. And they're smart. They're brilliant creatures, but they're heavy too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Heavy.
You were talking about the horse having its head ripped off.
Yeah.
I've heard other stories about horses being mutilated and
yeah, I've heard of the hind quarter being ripped off of.
Yeah, and not eaten, just not eaten, just
No, these were taken, so that
the head was there, but the horse was gone.
No, not that particular one.
Okay.
Other ones that I've heard that the horse's hind quarter was ripped and it was taken. It wasn't like ripped off and left there. It was ripped off, and I mean, think of the power. Like I say,
was looking for dinner.
Yeah, they're like horse kebab to go.
Right.
Wow. All right. What else is going on?
That's crazy.
What else you have?
All right. Yeah. Well, Johnny and I and 2 other guys were in his Chevy Nova, and this was, more of a, older street Nova. Driving along one of the old power line roads and lookout tower roads up in Arizona. And Johnny had to use the bathroom, and he's the one driving. So he takes it out of gear, shuts it off, or puts it in gear and shuts it off because it was a, through 4-speed that was, on the ground. And he hops out with the toilet paper, heads out in the woods. And we're all sitting there just waiting for him, and all of a sudden we start hearing some crackling, like branches snapping. And all of a sudden Johnny yells, "Start the car! start the car. And I'm in the back seat on the passenger side, right? But I'm like Johnny's right-hand man. So I jump over the seat and start the car, and it starts, without touching the gas. Great. And I know Johnny's car will. So he jumps in, takes off. There's something coming. There's something huge out there. So we take off, and we're going 30, 35 miles an hour, cruising along these cinder roads. And you can't go much faster than that. But Johnny's trying, of course. And I look back, and there's something loping behind me. Just like not even straining. Just kind of, you can see some arm swing, but not a lot. But it wasn't like a 35, 40 miles an hour. We would be like gone out of our mind. Our heart would be pumping out of our chest. This was just like loping, not even working up a sweat. And I couldn't see any detail. It wasn't, it was, right that moment, like 15, 20 feet back from the car as we take off. And you could see this like silhouette, because the only reason I could kind of see it was because of the taillights and the dust that was kicking up off of the front and back tires. You could see this black or some kind of figure.
I wonder if he was just kind of playing with you and just kind of keeping up with you to just,
yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories about people being chased by Bigfoot.
Right. Or they'll slap the back of their car or something. Just it's like a dare.
Yeah. If they could catch you if they wanted to, I think maybe they're just kind of teasing, toying with people.
Yeah. And I'm glad.
Right.
So in that same area, Johnny took me to a cave that he and a friend found about 3 years before that. He and his friend were going to go fishing and went down to this creek area. And there's a big slope. It's probably 50, 60 feet from the top down to the bottom. And they were climbing down these rocks, and Johnny actually slid into this cave on this big flat rock that kind of dropped down about 7 foot into this cave. And it's wider on the side down below where his friend came in, and where I've been there since then to come in and out that cave. So he says, "Hey, there's a cave down here." And his friend comes down there, and they're looking around. They got a big lighter, and they're kind of looking around, and it's like a couple of like carcasses from a couple of birds and a little animal. And there's this weird shelf that looks, it looks like the thickness of a mattress, and it's about maybe 8 inches deep, 8 to 10 inches deep, all the way, not all the way, but probably about 20 feet, 25 feet on the left-hand side of the cave. And the cave's only about 4 feet tall. It's not real tall right through there. And as they're kind of looking, and they get toward the back of the cave, and they got this lighter, right? And then as he gets back there, and it's only about 25, 30 feet deep, and something growls in his face. And Johnny ran over his friend on the way out. He said his friend was white as a ghost when he got out.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show with Brian and Todd. If you're enjoying the show or would like to submit an encounter, visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net, or you can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Now back to the show.
And they left our fishing stuff and ran, got up to the car and left, just gone, didn't care. And he says, "I can take you there." And I said, "Yeah, I want to go." So I said, so we go. And we park, and we find it, because it's kind of at this peak of where the river or creek does turn. So you can, locate it. And we found it and went in the side of it. Of course, we didn't slide in it. And there was still a little bit of carcass bones, but not much of anything. But that shelf that he talked about, similar looking shelf thing, was there. And go toward the back of the cave. And of course, what do we have is a big lighter too. Don't think of getting a flashlight, or, this is, in the 70s. So, that how flashlights weren't that good in the back of that anyway, but some were, but not that many. Anyway, So get back there, and there's kind of like this big concave kind of rock. I kind of go around that, and it's pretty easy to go around it. You could push a wheelchair around it. It's, low, but you can get around it. And then behind it is like this wall. But on the bottom, there's this crack all the way across the bottom of the wall. Like it's probably about 4 foot wide. And you can hear this cavern back there. I could hear the wind just like, it sounded like Carlsbad Cavern to me, listening to that from California when I was younger. But the same kind of sound, this huge cavern must be behind that wall. And I only had a lighter, and I wasn't going to try and lift that wall up. I didn't want to see what I might see if I did, or it might go up real easy, and I might not be happy with what I saw. I just like, okay, I can still go back there. I bring a little more equipment this time, a little more light. But that was one of them.
Well, that's
definitely want to go back there prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time I go to Arizona, I definitely will. Definitely get back there.
Kind of gave me chills a little bit when you were talking about that thing growling back in there. Who knows what that could have been?
Yeah. Well, we kind of know what it is, what they are, and that's, we used to joke that Glenn, they have your scent. Because I used to camp in those same woods that I've heard them in, and nobody else camps there. It wasn't like there was a campsite there. We just like drove his car, right into the woods. I'd drive my motorcycle up next to it, and we'd have a campsite, and stay out there for weeks and just enjoy nature. It's great. Mm-hmm. But that's for another story. Well, I got to go to Pennsylvania now for a little more action, or what's been going on here. Let's see, 2018, I was going camping with my brother, and I was coming from my area, Scranton, toward this campground, and my brother was coming from Selinsgrove, another area, a different area. So we were going to meet, and I was probably about half hour, 20 minutes ahead of him. So I'm kind of always looking for something, related to Bigfoot. And I see this little dirt throughway, a little dirt path, driveway, maybe from years ago or something. And it's only about 100 yards from where the highway is, or, interstate goes through. But I turn down it. I back up and I turn down it, my little RAV4. And I get over there and I can see it's like a muddy cul-de-sac from like a trucks might have turned around from, 10 years ago or something. Nothing been used in quite some time. Real muddy on the one side. So I'm like, well, okay. And I look to my right. I'm like, well, I kind of see some ruts kind of going to my right. And I'm like, well, I'll pull down that way. It's going more toward the forest. So I pull down that way. And I can see it keeps going. And it's only like another 100 yards. It's not like a long ways. And I come past this one tree and I see all these branches all like weaved together and on this, like leaning up against this other big log that had fallen. And I'm like, well, okay, that's interesting. So I stop and I shut off the truck and I get out and I'm walking over toward it and I see this like hair on the ground. Like little, like short hair, like from different, like fox and rabbit, or like just like covering like a 10 by 8, area all over the ground. At least I think that's what the hair is. I don't know, And I also see this huge, there's like a huge plop of poop that's like this thick, and then another plop smaller that's the leaf next to it in the picture is as big as my hand, and that smaller poop is that big. And then there's a bigger one next to it. And it was very odd looking and gelatinous and just hair and fiber and odd. Anyway, so I'm looking at this, hair and all this area, and it's like, all right, I got to bring my brother back here. So I bring him back over there, and I want to go hiking down in these laurels. These mountain laurels in that area, I call them like grandfather laurels because they're so big. They're like 15 to 20 feet high and overhanging. These huge leaves on these laurels are about 7 or 8 inches long, and nice and thick and wide, and they're mountain laurels are year round. They're green. I've seen them with a quarter-inch, half-inch of ice on them, and they're driving through them in my mirrors. It sounds like you're driving through a glass house. Just like ching, 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 ching. Everything's breaking off of them, but the leaves are fine all year long. Beautiful. And I did find out, I'm reading up on them, and that deer eat them. They'll eat them, but it's spicy to their tongue, like hot, but they get inebriated from the mountain laurel leaves. So I think Bigfoot would eat them too.
Nice. Drunk deer and drunk Bigfoot. Nice.
Yeah, or bear, I mean, that's why bears stumble into, they look like they're on a stupor the way they walk.
Yeah.
But year-round cover for Bigfoot, for other, animals and creatures. You can't even see 15 feet into these laurels. They're so thick, and just complex twists, and, with these laurels are amazing. So he didn't want to go hiking down in there. But I did go back a few times and investigated there, and we definitely found evidence. And then I brought 3 other people with me. AJ, which had been out there before with me, and Stephanie and her new boyfriend at the time. So the 4 of us went out there, and we parked in that same spot. We hiked down for about 2.5 hours, almost all the way down to the river down there, or the creek. No, it's a river. And after I said, guys, why don't we let this area cool down for a while? We'll drive and go somewhere else for a while. Let this area kind of calm down or cool down. Because there's 4 of us there. I didn't want to upset, what was going on. So they agreed. And so we hiked back up to my truck, and we drove to a more public area hiking where there's like waterfalls and bridges and trails. And then I took them off trail down these like Humpty Dumps kind of trail up and down, 5 foot, 6 foot up, down. We got out onto this little river, or little island out on the river. You could just walk right over to it. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is cool. And we're walking along, and we find this small footprint. It's probably like about a size 8 kid size. And it's sunk down about almost an inch thick into the ground, the mud. And we stepped next to it, and I'm like 190 pounds. And we only went in about 1/8 of an inch. And so whatever made that print was at least 400 pounds, or was carrying something that was 200 pounds. At that size for that foot, though, that's heavy. Unless it jumped down, but that's a lot of impact for a kid barefoot to do. But a Bigfoot, maybe. I don't know. But that's not the strange part. So we go past that, right? And I'm not sure who was leading. I wasn't. AJ or Stephanie, I'm not sure. But they're leading. And we don't know how long, but we came back around somehow to that same footprint, going the same direction on a little island. But we didn't go, it was like in a creek. It wasn't, a creek or river. An island doesn't you don't go around the thing. This is like, and I said, all right, guys, stop. We're going to follow me. We're going back out, and led them back out up to the vehicle. But, just kind of strange that, come back to that same footprint. So we back to the vehicle, drive back over to the other area. And I decided to back in because it's almost pitch dark now. And it's muddy there, so it just makes more sense to back in and then drive out when it's done. So we back in. I get pretty far all the way back there, right next to that tree and everything, right back there. And we're talking for quite a while, and I tell Stephanie to just say a few things, let them know that there's a girl here. And she's like, I don't know what to say. And I said, just say anything, just put them at ease, put their mind at ease, So she does. She kind of says a few sentences and talks a little bit, I said, great, that's what you want to do. Just, let them know that there's somebody here. And I didn't have a flashlight at the time. And I walked out about 15, 20 feet or a little more, and they're shining their big lights on my back. And this silhouette is shining in front of me like a huge Bigfoot. It kind of looked like the silhouette. So I'm just kind of doing what I told her. I'm just kind of talking and trying to put them at ease, right? And I walked back over to where they are by the SUV, and AJ had gotten in the front seat on the passenger side. So he's in there looking at the maps or something. And I was talking with them, and I decided to do a yell, replicate what I heard in Arizona. So I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. So I kind of turned around toward the SUV, and I saw that the driver's window was open, my window. And I said, well, I didn't want to yell in AJ's ear, so I decided to walk to the back of the truck. So I go to the back of the SUV, the RAV4, and I look out, and I just really loud, real quick, about a half a second, big yell, just, ah! And right about then, just something started stomping up at me. And this is huge, just boom, 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 boom. And it's snapping off these branches. I mean, they're like these huge laurel branches just snapping like toothpicks. And you can't see anything. It's just stomping up at us. We're just scrambling. This boyfriend guy jumps in the back seat and slams the door behind me. So Stephanie has to run around the truck, the front of the truck, because nobody was running toward the back of the truck with that thing running up at us. And it was coming up at like 60 miles an hour, it felt like. I never heard anything pound the ground as heavy as these steps were. And they were bipedal. Oh my God, Todd. I mean, it was bam, 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 bam. You could just, I mean, it was just like right there in front of me, coming up at me. I mean, I don't know what I said, or later I'm thinking it might have been coming up to protect us, and then realized, wait. I don't know.
Are you still getting out and looking?
I go out. Yeah, I go out like twice a week usually.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. We got to the Susquehanna area. I mean, I don't even get into it, but all over the region.
Yeah, I was just looking at the map. Scranton you're not far from upstate New York.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I cover Columbia, basically Bucks County, all the way up to Northampton, Monroe, Lehigh, Luzerne, Lackawanna, Columbia, Wayne, all those counties that I've been to and we do investigations for. And there's chapters all over Pennsylvania from the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Association or Bigfoot group on Facebook. Once you join, you can join the little chapters everywhere. We have lead groups in almost every county.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And there's interactive maps that show where the past sightings in different years from the 1900s to the early 50s, 70s, 90s, into present day, sightings that we keep loading up to the database.
Yeah, I was looking on the map as well. It looks like you guys are right there. Aren't you in the Appalachian Trail or right along the Appalachian Trail there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not far. The Poconos are right along here. We have the Wind Gap and Water Gap. Both of those are right along the, Appalachian Trail. And there's a lot of areas.
Cool.
But they're closer than you think. They're a lot closer than you think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they are. They're just good at hiding, right?
Very good.
I'm surprised that you actually went after that second sound that you heard. You said you walked toward it trying to see what the heck it was.
I ran as fast as I could. Like say the dog was about 15, 20 feet in front of me.
So you ran toward this sound.
Yes.
Brave.
As fast as I could.
Brave. Very brave.
As fast as I could. And at 15 years old, I was a pretty good runner. I wasn't great, but I was a pretty fast runner. And I mean, like I said, I was out of breath when I ran that quarter mile or whatever it was. And like I said, catching my breath, I decided to go at an angle to find the mud or find something. I was looking for something to go in, maybe into the water, I figured maybe catch a print, something. And I caught a print, but wow. I mean, sunk in 8 inches deep, and it was just the front half of the foot. The toe part was 7 or 8 inches wide, and it was the right foot, definitely deep sunk in and pushed all that mud up.
You think he was jumping in the water? Is that where he was going?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. He was diving in the water after that step. He probably thought he didn't need to, but he had to take that one last step. And it sunk in so deep, it was just the front half of his foot. And then he just dove into the water from there. A nice shallow dive, I'm sure, but that's that's a lot of weight to push all that weight, all that mud up. That was one of the most amazing things too. It's like so thick, that mud just, it's like this big plane of mud going up like 16 inches and then curling back. And it was so wide as the foot, at the mid part of the foot.
Yeah, he must have just hit that just tall and just slammed into it. And
that takes a lot of weight.
Well, it was pretty straight up and down. As strange as that sounds, it was pretty straight up and down. It wasn't like at an angle going in or out. Like that foot went in and it came out just through the toe part, because they have that mid-tarsal break. I don't need to explain that to you.
No.
But,
and then you had that print that you said was smaller, like a size 8, did you say?
A size 8 child size.
Size 8 child size. So obviously a juvenile, but they probably are heavier than what we think they are. Or maybe, like you said, maybe they were carrying something.
Maybe they were carrying a deer or something too, or something.
But you don't ever see kids out there walking around in that kind of environment in the bare feet, do you? I mean, not normally.
No. Like I say, they're pretty rugged trails just to get down there. Some of the trails on the other side are like black diamond trails. These weren't, but we were off trail and then off on this little island on the creek or river.
Gotcha.
And that's where we found this print. And then we came back to that same print. It was almost like a time warp. I don't want to say that because that's not what that was the whole thing is about. But to come back to that same print in that same direction was pretty odd for all four of us, not just me. All four of us didn't understand that. But it got us motivated to get back out, to go to the other side and go to get that experience. And let me finish the story. After everybody got in the vehicle, we take off. As I'm going, everybody's yelling, "Don't stop, don't stop. That thing could just knock this truck over. Go, go." And an hour earlier, the boyfriend's like, "Oh, I don't care, Bigfoot. I'll fight him. I don't care if he rips my arms off." He was the first one jumping in the truck. And the one yelling, "Don't stop. He could just knock this truck over." But nobody wanted to go back, and I didn't want to get anyone hurt that night. So AGA and I, first thing in the morning, went back there and come up to this area. We go into these laurels, and behind where my truck was parked, we're finding branches that were about 3 inches around, just snapped off like 10 foot up, 8 foot up into this laurels. And I mean, real footprints, but the impact was, it's like you take elephants are very light footed. You don't even hear them. The way they prance. They don't stomp like this. And I've been tracked by Bigfoot. I've never heard this loud of a rush. It was coming at us, and with all of its force, just bam, 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 bam. You could just feel it coming up at me.
Right. What other animal?
Could feel it inside there, inside the truck. He could feel it through the tires.
Yeah. What other animal would do that? I mean, what do you have in Pennsylvania? Bears, and a bear's not gonna do that. Bears
don't. Yeah, someone said bears stomp. I'm like, yeah, they really not anything near what we were talking about. Like we're like take a rhino and both legs and just swing it and let it hit the ground. With all of its force, bam, bam. But it's bipedal coming. There's no big animals like that other than Bigfoot. Not that I know of.
Do you think you'll see another one, Glenn?
Oh, yeah. Only because it seems like I've been in so many areas that they just seem to be either attracted to me or I'm attracted to where they are. Like we're investigating different areas. We have some on thermal, 30 yards behind us. And it was there for like 7 minutes and then it was gone. And then a week later, I'm in that same area, and I told Bob, I said, like, I'm going to go up to that same tree where it had its face in the Y of the tree, right? And I'm going to put my hands up, or I'm going to see how high, so I go up there. Later, when he looked at the video, he saw something move away as I went up there. So, that's good, but as high as I could reach was as high as I could. The face was where that Y was in the tree. You
definitely got some activity going on where you're at there, and in Arizona. Apparently, is that near Mount Baldy where you were talking about in Arizona?
No, it's in the White Mountains, Lakeside, Pine Top, Sholo. We're all in that region. The Mogollon Rim, probably heard of the Mogollon Monster.
Yep.
The Mogollon Rim, that's that region.
I always wondered how you pronounce that. Is it Mogollon?
Different. That's the way I always called it, yeah.
I always said Mogollon, and I know that's not right.
Mogollon, the L is kind of silent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beautiful area. It's kind of like a 6,000 foot incline, and it's a steep incline of this natural forested, area, and it's just like thousands of feet that it inclines, and then it goes back up to like Holbrook and Flagstaff and Sedona, but this area is just gorgeous for sunsets and just amazing. The stars out there, because there's no light out there when you get out in these deep woods. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love the area out there, the western part of the United States, and in the Arizona, that whole Southwest vibe. I love that that whole feel out there. Well, Glenn, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us and telling us those exciting and interesting and somewhat terrifying encounters, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to point something out too. I forgave them for any fright or scare that I might have gotten when I was younger, and now even when I go out, I think it's important to get that out there, because somehow I feel that they hold on to that fear in us, and I think that's why they don't expose themselves to a lot of other people, is because their emotions are extreme, and so is their mental abilities and their physical abilities. But I think that's part of it. So I forgave them for any kind of, and sometimes when I tell that story, I get real emotional, and it'll just, I can talk for a little while, because it's so powerful when that, powerful scream is coming at you. This roar is powering down on you. There's nothing, it's like you want to just crawl up in a ball and just get in an infant, state. It's that you can't do anything. That's the alpha male protecting something. That's the vibe I got.
You were getting hit with infrasound for sure, I'm guessing.
Yeah. The time that I saw that hair and spun around and dropped to the ground saved my life. Because when I came back to that spot and we're looking around where that hair was and those breaks, about 6 or 8 feet past that was where this big tree was, and the barbed wire was partially attached to that. And that was a huge tree that I didn't look straight up. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. Like I say, I dropped to my fingertips and I'm looking straight ahead. I'm looking up in a distance because I can feel something from that way it feels, and I can't, I don't see anything. So I know, just back up slowly. Don't make a sudden move. But I think if I might have looked up and saw it, it might not have reacted or ended the same way it did. Because that hair was gone in the morning, or that takes a lot of intelligence and something seeing what went on. There's no human that wouldn't be still screaming, standing there, if that much hair got ripped off his or her hair or head, or scalp. Oh, yeah. Even that creature, obviously, like I say, I saw fresh breaks. So it might have been watching us on the other side of the creek, And then I came across and came toward it, and it got frazzled and ran, tripped on the barbed wire or whatever. It got cuts from somewhere on its body. That's a lot of hair. And I had found a lot of hair in that area, but it was different. Most of the hair was black coming out where the scalp was pulled, where the white part is. And it was 15.5 inches long, or 15 to 18 inches long. But it was black for about 8 inches and then turned to a red for the last part. So black where it came out of the scalp, because you could see the white follicle, the way it was, and this hair was very coarse, you could straighten it out, put it on a counter, and it would kind of like pop up like this, curled all the way down it, very coarse.
Did you send it in to get tested or anything?
I was going to, but it got stolen with a suitcase when I was, traveling one time. Whole suitcase got stolen. But I looked at it. I looked at every horse in that whole region. There was no horses in that particular spot, but I checked out every horse anyway, and nothing matched anything close to what this hair was like.
Tell us about your organization there again, real quick.
Certainly, it's the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project on Facebook. That's the easiest way. Just go on to search Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. There's a few questions you ask. We're a no-kill kind of operation. We don't believe in that. We don't believe in protecting them and knowledge and passing it on to our members. We don't really share outside of the group other than, if it's something you ask permission to share something, that's fine. And, that's why, these are my own personal experiences. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of investigations. I don't talk about a lot of those because some of the people don't want to talk about it. Even though they've made the report, they did it anonymously. We do it in a respectful way. And when we do investigate, we do not upset the creatures when we go do it. Some people don't know what they're doing, and that's the wrong way to go do it. So
that's right.
But anyway, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, Facebook. I'm the Lackawanna County chapter lead, and the North Pennsylvania and Northeast Pennsylvania, all along the border, is my region. So
awesome. Well,
thanks for talking with me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming on.
Our listeners will check you out, I'm sure. They're interested. And thank you again. If you see something, please get back to us.
Yeah, keep in touch. Let us know what's going on out there.
Definitely. There's a couple of big seminars, and I just talked with some of the news people that are interested in doing reports, and so that's good too. Get more publicized that way, get more people. I think it's Matt LeBlanc is going to be in Wilkes-Barre for a meet and greet and seminar. It's like $35 per person coming up in April. I have monthly meetings. I usually hold them at the Holiday Inn in Dunmore. I have one on March 12th coming up, and then we're doing in April, May. We're going to planning our camping trips right now for the season.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, man. Well, man. Thank you again. You have a good one. Take care.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Be safe.
Yeah, be safe out there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's pretty popular state for Bigfoot encounters.
Man, you're not kidding. There are some hot spots around there, especially where he's at. Isn't he up by? He's up by New York, isn't he? By upstate.
Yeah, or at least at one point he was. Yeah, that's all wooded heavily up there on that upper Pennsylvania there.
Yeah, it's another place we need to go.
If we ever get there for a show, you know what we can do. Get out and about.
That's right. So. Get out there and poke around.
Yeah, what we should do is just tell our listeners whatever shows we're going to, and hopefully they'll meet us there, and then we can maybe plan some time to go out and do some squatching with them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You guys think that's a cool idea? Awesome. Let us know. Shoot us an email, info@cryptidcreatures.co. So,
and we will let you know.
All right, man. We better get out of here.
Yeah, all right, man. Always fun.
I will see you later.
Yep. See ya.